Imagine holding absolute power over a 15th century Italian city-state. One morning, a letter arrives on your desk from a young man seeking work. He doesn't lead with a list of wealthy patrons or a formal degree. Instead, he pitches himself as a master military engineer. The letter is filled with staggering technical claims. The applicant insists he can design indestructible bridges, devastating cannons, and fully enclosed armored vehicles that can break through enemy lines with ease. Buried at the very bottom of this resume, almost as an afterthought, the applicant notes that he also knows how to paint. The author of this letter was an uneducated, illegitimate son named Leonardo da Vinci. Today, we tend to separate human intelligence into rigid categories. We put the analytical, engineering brains in one box and the creative, artistic brains in another. Leonardo rejected this division. He believed that to paint a landscape or a human figure accurately, you first had to reverse engineer the physical laws that make them work. For him, science and art were the same tool used to solve the same problems. That commitment to physics is why Leonardo was obsessed with the raw force of nature. He drafted complex plans to divert entire rivers and spent years observing exactly how moving water carves and moves the earth. When he eventually turned to a canvas, his field observations of nature dictated his brushstrokes. We see the result of this geological research in his painting, The Virgin of the Rocks. The caverns surrounding the figures is a rigorous rendering of physical reality. The rock formations display correct geological weathering patterns, and the flora growing in the shadows are exact plant species that Leonardo observed thriving in damp, rocky environments. While other artists invented their backgrounds, Leonardo built his from actual field data. His understanding of erosion and natural forces gave his work a grounding in physical law that his contemporaries couldn't replicate. This same mechanical rigor applied to how he handled space. When Leonardo moved to Milan and was commissioned to paint The Last Supper, he wasn't handed a standard canvas. He had to work directly on a monastery wall. The room presented an optical problem. The mural needed to feel like an extension of the hall, but the monks eating there would be viewing the flat image from dozens of different angles. Leonardo's geometric solution was to warp the perspective lines. He slightly distorted the angles of the painted ceiling and walls so the room would appear perfectly straight to viewers standing anywhere on the dining floor. He then hid this mathematical distortion in plain sight. The massive dining table and the decorations along the top of the mural mask the areas where the perspective is actually broken. By mastering geometry, Leonardo was able to bend its rules, creating a shared optical illusion that transformed a flat wall into a deep, three-dimensional space for everyone in the room. To understand the human form, Leonardo took his research into hospitals and morgues. He spent nights dissecting corpses, beginning with a 100-year-old man, meticulously mapping out every internal bone and muscle to understand how they functioned as a machine. By measuring bone lengths and muscle attachments, he drafted the body with the precision of an architect. He treated the human frame as a series of exact geometric proportions, allowing him to calculate exactly how a face would shift with every muscle movement. These biological studies led to his most famous work. The Mona Lisa isn't a simple portrait. It is the culmination of Leonardo's research into human anatomy and optics. The magic of her smile is an engineered effect. When you look directly at her mouth, the smile appears subtle, but as your eyes move to her gaze or the background, the expression seems to change. Leonardo achieved this by napping how the human eye processes light. He painted the shadows of her smile so they register in our peripheral vision, which picks up blurred shapes, but disappear when we use the sharp, direct focus of our central vision. By reverse engineering how the brain perceives shadows, Leonardo turned a flat canvas into a reacting biological presence. Leonardo died in France with a legacy that was famously full of unfinished commissions and abandoned machines, but he left behind thousands of notebook pages written in mirror script. These papers contained his real-life work, observations on everything from the flight of birds to the valves of the human heart. This drive for knowledge began in his childhood. Leonardo once stood before the entrance of a pitch-black cave, terrified of what might be inside, but also desperate to know the secret of its darkness. He stepped inside and discovered the fossilized bones of a whale. That moment set the pattern for his entire life. Curiosity always overpowered his fear of the unknown. Leonardo didn't have a formal school or a high completion rate. He transformed our understanding of art and nature simply because he possessed the relentless drive to walk into the dark and ask why.